look, I'm not leaving the country. All right. I never said that. I was never one of these celebrities, D-list or otherwise, that was like, and if Trump gets reelected, I'm leaving the country and I'm going here and I'm going to do this. Obviously, I didn't want him to win. And, you know, what's going to happen now, especially with Project 2025, is yet to be seen how much they're going to do of it. But I definitely suggest that you read Project 2025. It's not that difficult of a read at all. It's not a book. But I have had the knock at the door. So don't come at me and don't be talking to me about, you know, you should be so scared, Kathy, and I'm sure you're packing your bags.
Well, that was hard to watch and hard to listen to. Anyway, nobody has gotten more free publicity for his thing than my next guest, the president of Heritage Foundation, Dr. Kevin Roberts, also author of a new book you should probably pick up, Dawn's Early Light, about saving this country. Doctor, how much free, if you had to guess, because you've been doing this a long time, how much money in free advertising do you think these crazy commies have provided you in Project 2025? It's endless. I've never seen marketing like this in my life. Well done.
Yeah, I think about $1 billion. I mean, basically what Kamala Harris raised for her ridiculous campaign. And can I just say, what knock has Griffin gotten on her door? I mean, what a preposterous assertion. But that's what's going on with so many of these unhinged lefties. The best thing we're going to do with Project 2025 is fix the ice cream machine at McDonald's.
Okay, so Project 2025 obviously got a lot of pub during the campaign. The commies tried to dump the whole thing in Trump's lap. Trump said, I don't know it. I don't have anything to do with it. But it is wonderful. And you and I have had this talk before about it's a database. It's database so we have good people to select from to start filling up these government roles. How's it looking?
It's looking great. You know, there are two parts to our project. One is the policies, which of course we do every day at Heritage in conjunction with over 100 other groups. But the real key part of this, the long-term part of this, is the personnel database. We have about 20,000 names there. Way too early to prognosticate or even estimate what number of them will be asked by the current administration to go in. But I will say that the way it's looking is that the president-elect is hitting a grand slam. All of the names that have been confirmed thus far, starting with the chief of staff, Susie Wiles, to our visiting fellow at Heritage, Tom Homan, who's going to be the border czar, to my friend Stephen Miller, deputy chief, to Marco Rubio. This is a stellar cabinet. And what I like about this the most, Jesse, to sum up here, is that it reflects where conservatism is right now. It doesn't reflect conservatism of 10 or 20 or 40 years ago. It is an honest to goodness, realistic view of where the country is. And I think they're going to do just a spectacular job.
I do too, and that almost makes me nervous how hopeful I am about everything I'm seeing. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfect in Washington, D.C., but what is realistic, Kevin, if this is going to continue like this? What's a realistic hope for what he can get done in 4 years? It's just 4 years. There won't be another 4 after that. What can he do?
Well, I'll separate that into two parts. The first is what I think is realistic, perhaps even somewhat likely by next summer, so just 6 months in. You're going to see the border closed. You're going to see self-deportation of a majority of the illegal aliens who have come here. That's just the nature of what happens when there is a very strong administration administering the rule of law, not just at the southern border, Jesse, as you know, but also in the interior. That's what Tom Homan gets right so well. But then I think you're going to see the renewal of the Trump tax cuts early on. That's going to be a boon to the economy. And then thirdly, while I don't know which agency it will be, if I had to guess, and it is just a guess at this point, I do think that President Trump and Vice President Vance are going to pick a particular agency, whether that be the Department of Education or something else, and say, we're going to use this as an example to show to the American people of what it looks like to devolve power from Washington back to the states. And then with that head of steam legislatively, I think you're going to see massive deregulation through executive orders, perhaps even through Congress. We got to get past the good thing, the filibuster in the Senate. We don't have 60 votes, and we have a very slim majority in the House. There's a lot of this action that requires legislation. And obviously, as conservatives, we want that to happen. But I would think if we're sitting here talking a year from now, while it won't be perfect, politics can't be. That's not how policymaking goes, even with great men and great women involved. I think we're going to be really pleased.
We have a huge, huge leadership fight for who's going to be guiding the ship in the Senate. It's coming tomorrow. I've been vocally shouting for Rick Scott, and that is not as much of an endorsement as Rick Scott, actually, as much as it is, I know exactly what John Thune and John Cornyn will mean. It'll just be a continuation of Mitch McConnell. You talked to Rick Scott today, didn't you?
I talked to Rick Scott yesterday and did something that usually we don't do at Heritage, and that is we endorsed him. We usually let the members of the Senate and the members of the House make their own decisions. We respect that. But in this case, there's just too much at stake. Senator Scott is one of my best friends in Congress. He's just a real dude. I mean, he's just a guy you could sit down and have a cup of coffee with or a beer with, very accomplished, someone who understands, to your point, Jesse, that we cannot continue to do business as usual in Washington if, in fact, the Republicans come together and select Senator Scott as majority leader, along with, even though it's a slim majority in the House, having Speaker Johnson there, along with the executive branch. To your first question, how are things going to go? They're going to go a lot better because Rick Scott is not owned by K Street.
The others are, and I'm hoping Rick Scott gets it, but at this point in time, from what I hear, it doesn't sound good. What are you hearing?
Look, he started this as a long shot. As a long shot. And I think that those chances have improved. He certainly believes that he can win. I hope that he can. I will say that if it isn't him, then I was certainly gratified to see the letter that John Cornyn, who is sincerely a friend of mine from my Texas days, wrote to his colleagues. I think that offers some promise. This is the key thing. Whether Senator Scott wins or loses, there has to be a recognition by Republican senators that Mitch McConnell's days of running Capitol Hill are over. He might have done some good with judges. He might have done some good in the past. I certainly respect him personally, but it is time for him to move on and get out of the way so that we can implement what the popular will from the election is, which is that we must dismantle Washington's power over the rest of us.
Talk to me about this book, Dawn's Early Light. What's in it?
Well, it's a bit of a longer term view of where we go from here. Obviously, Heritage is very much involved in the short term. We registered a lot of voters and spent a lot of money on messaging in the campaign. But another part of our job, as you know, Jesse, is to articulate a vision about what America can look like. And picking up on this conversation thread that you and I are having, which is an attempt to undermine the power of the deep state, undermine the power of the elites in Washington and New York. I use that as a pivot point to hopefully, I hope, inspire people with these words of Francis Scott Key, Dawn's Early Light, that we just might, in the 2020s, have an opportunity to reinvigorate the American dream by doing what? By getting Washington out of the way, by not only giving state and local governments more power, but very importantly, we can do something that every individual American plays a role in, and that's revitalizing our communities, revitalizing our civic associations, revitalizing, in fact, what makes America America, which is our relationships. That's the kind of thing that the radical left has tried to destroy by undermining our public schools, undermining our colleges and universities. And it's incumbent on us to realize that politics is not everything, as important as, in fact, politics is.
Dr. Kevin Roberts, his book is The Dawn's Early Light. Go pick it up. Thank you so much. I appreciate you very much. Come back anytime. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.